Awesome, awesome. We are live on Facebook, live on YouTube. We have the man, the myth, the legend, Joe Martinez in the house today. You guys have seen him. Maybe you've eaten his food. Maybe you've seen him on social media. He's a bit of a barbecue guy. If you haven't noticed, can you hear me, Joe?
Yep, I got you. Morning.
Perfect. Morning, morning. So you got the whole setup over there. You got the mics, boom mics, and everything over there. So it's serious stuff chatting with you this morning.
Yeah, I'm in my recording studio that kind of doubles as a I do podcast and I go live on YouTube and stuff like that. So I said
Yeah,
I just converted a small piece of my kitchen into and dedicated it to what I do.
there you go. Might as
Yeah.
well. Might as
Yep.
well. We'll hit the intro and get this thing started.
All right.
What's up, guys? Wes, the People's Pitmaster, back again for another episode of the Smoke Ring Syndicate. It's my weekly barbecue podcast that drops every Wednesday at 5:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This week we've got Joe Martinez of Joe Martinez in the house. Joe, can you hear me?
I got you, Wes.
Got you, man. So Joe Martinez, formerly of Smokin Joe's, uh, just a little bit of a barbecue lover, a little bit of a barbecue guy.
Hmm.
Um, Introduce yourself, kind of tell my listeners kind of who you are and what influenced you originally to get into barbecue, and then we'll kind of walk up from there.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Martinez with Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue. I had I had started off with a YouTube channel, and that passion for barbecue kind of led me to open up my own barbecue business, which I had open for about 2 years. I recently closed it down, but my passion for barbecue started probably 20 years ago, if not longer. I entered a barbecue cook-off competition. I ended up winning that, and one thing led to another, and obviously prior to my passion for barbecue's always been there, but I held a corporate job for 24 years and
Hmm.
retired from there, and just wanted to chase my dream of opening up my own barbecue food truck, which I did, and I accomplished a lot. But now I'm going to be focusing more on the YouTube and some of my social media platforms.
Okay. So, did you had family that barbecued at all, or you just kind of stumbled into it when you turned, 25 or 30, and you just had to make the decision if you were going to be a barbecue lover or a history buff, or kind of what put the barbecue in your life?
Yeah, so one would think that I grew up with this, and no, that's not the case. So I live in El Paso, Texas, which is far west Texas, and barbecue is not something that's very popular out here. When we talk about barbecue, or a friend invites you over to a barbecue, it probably is going to involve some chicken or some burgers and dogs and stuff like that, some steaks.
Hmm.
Never big meats like we know barbecue today. I think barbecue in general has grown uh, to this really big thing. Now, the rest of Texas, I'm talking Central Texas, East Texas,
Yeah.
has barbecue's always been really popular over there. Not so much here. Obviously, when I moved out of the house, went to school, and got my own place, I had to learn how to cook for myself, and Mexican food is very popular here, so that's something that I did. And Italian food, I had Emeril Lagasse was burning up the TV at that point, and
Oh yeah.
and a lot of there's a lot of chefs online, Paula Deen and stuff, that I really fell in love with their style, and none of them did barbecue, right?
Yeah.
But then I went to the store, and I saw this smoker that looked like R2D2. It was a Weber Smoky Mountain. I said, I'm going to
Yeah.
take this thing, and took it home, and just started playing around with barbecue, and I started with pork butts, and pork butts are very forgiving, so it's a fairly easy barbecue item to cook. And the pork butt led to ribs, and ribs leads to brisket and everything else. So I'm kind of a self-made barbecue guy. I didn't grow up doing this. Not one time did I go to a party, family party, or even
Hmm.
friends parties where they had barbecue like what we know today. It's just, it has exploded. Um, not just here in Texas. I think barbecue in general has exploded everywhere. Even if you're in, you have folks in Florida or Phoenix, or I mean, just everywhere cooking barbecue. You don't have to be in a big barbecue state, as long as you're into barbecue and you want to cook it. You can do it in your backyard. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what led me to starting my YouTube channel. And I said, man, I would. YouTube was fairly new to me. I didn't know YouTube existed until somebody told me about it, and I was watching videos, and I said, hey, I can do that. Or maybe I didn't agree with the way somebody did something, so I said, I'm gonna change this up and do it the way that I've done it.
Yeah.
And that Weber Smoky Mountain just kind of blew up into bigger and better smokers.
Yeah. So you started doing the YouTube stuff, just kind of like showcasing how how Joe does barbecue. Was it a goal to be a social media guy, or was it just like, let me say my piece and move on with life, and then just something took over and it just grew to five 250,000, or whatever your YouTube's at nowadays.
Hmm. No, it. I didn't go into it with the plan of becoming the social media guy. I really didn't. And social media, YouTube is part of social media, because you're out there, sharing your passion for whatever to
Hmm.
society. And then you get Instagram and all these other platforms that start popping up. But I didn't go into it uh, with the hopes of growing to this spot where I'm at now. And
Hmm.
I'm not, my channel, it's got 280,000 subscribers. It's not a really big channel. It's a decent sized channel, but it's not a very big channel.
Hmm.
My goal is to hopefully hit 1 million subscribers one of these days. Then, then I can say, okay, yeah, that's a pretty big deal. Um, but I just went into it to kind of mess around. In fact, my very first cook, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a chub of bologna. um
Okay.
so I smoked a chub of bologna on a pellet smoker. And it's being a cook. Your satisfaction comes from people commenting on your food, like, hey chef, this is delicious, even though I'm not a chef, right? But
Yeah.
as a chef, they people, I think they get their natural high comes from people saying that, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
And you have parties at your house and people eat your barbecue and they're like, hey, this is really good stuff. And sometimes I will think that they're saying that because it's free, so I'm not charging them. But you know back then, obviously, I didn't know I was going to open up a barbecue joint, and I would have, if not, I would have said, or told my guests, well, let's see if you think about the same thing about my barbecue once I start charging you for it.
Yeah.
but it just turned in, it was just something that I started. And again, my first YouTube video was a smoked bologna, and people would comment. And it wasn't all positive either. It was there was you had your negative comments, but the positive comments, I think it boosted me a little bit. And people were like, hey, put out some more videos, or hey, how do you do ribs, or how do you do brisket, or can you do this? So I started, then I really started doing, got hot and heavy into YouTube, and I was doing 3 or 4 videos a week.
Hmm.
And obviously my satisfaction came from all the comments and stuff like that. And one thing led to another, and you start to, you start, I started filming with a GoPro camera. So sound was terrible. The light, there was no lighting. I didn't have it. I
Yeah.
had the kitchen lights, and every time my AC kicked on, it would vibrate on the kitchen counter, and you can hear it vibrating through the GoPro. So I didn't have the best setup, and I still don't have the best setup, but I've upgraded my game a little bit. So you
Yeah.
start to invest more in better equipment and stuff like that as you continue to grow. You're like, hey man, maybe I can do something with this, and
Yeah.
this is where we're
So,
at.
yeah. So you started the YouTube stuff, and the barbecue kind of was the YouTube barbecue platform was just kind of a place for you to say, "Hey, look at me cooking this," and that grew from there, and eventually made you go, you know what? Let me start a restaurant, or let me start a food truck, or I mean, was that kind of what it was? It was like the overwhelming, you should do this for a full time job, or what made you get into the selling portion of the food?
So, when I first started, I never anticipated opening up a food truck, any of that stuff. That wasn't something that I had. Um, but as
Wasn't on your
my
bingo card.
no, no, it was not something I had planned or even looking at. But as I my channel started to grow, then I started to get more introduced and more into barbecue. Finding other folks on YouTube that had the same passion as I did. Traveling, throughout Texas to try some barbecue joints and stuff like that, and then people started asking me to cook for them, for a party, and hey, can you do a couple briskets or some ribs or some pork butts, whatever. Um, and I said, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And meanwhile, I still had my corporate job. I was there
Hmm.
for a long time, and it was a very demanding job. So my time, uh, I was very limited on time to be able to do YouTube and stuff. But the minute I got home on Friday, I was a Monday through Friday job, unless I was traveling, for meetings and stuff like that. Then obviously I would skip. But
Yeah.
when I got home on Friday from work, I'd record something. I would record something.
Yeah.
If I got home at 5:30, I said, okay, well, I've got 5-6 hours before I got to go to bed or whatever. I'd start a cook. I'd do some chicken or something, some ribs that were pretty quick, and record the video, and then I would edit it in and release it. I was
Hmm.
hitting it hard, man. I was releasing the next day or that same
Yeah.
night. I would edit the video, um so it was a lot of work having that corporate job and doing YouTube. But somehow I managed to do it. But as the years went by, I started to grow my YouTube channel and get more catering gigs, and
Hmm.
then I started to realize that, hey, YouTube is it's a pretty good gig. I was getting paid pretty good through YouTube and making
Yeah.
some money on the side doing caterings and stuff. And then I, as a YouTuber, and you're heavy into barbecue, or if you're just in a heavily into barbecue, you start to think that, man, it would be nice to open up a barbecue joint. So I got that bug in me, and
Yeah.
if I set my mind, I'm the type of guy that if I set my mind to do something or buy something, I'm going to get it. And it goes for anything. If I want to buy a car, I want to buy a truck, I'm going to get it. I'm not just talking. I'm going to get it. I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen. And that, that same approach was with the food truck, or getting
Yeah.
into barbecue as a business. I just got it in, that bug bit me, and I planned for it. It's not something that you can just leave your corporate job or whatever you're doing and jump right into barbecue. It has to be planned. So there was a lot of
Yeah.
planning, probably 2 years of planning. Getting set financially, making sure all my ducks are in a row, because I've got a family and I've got to make sure they're okay. And um, so it took some work, but it's not something I originally planned to do. It's once I was in the barbecue scene, that's when I got it in me and said, I'm going to open up a barbecue place.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So you started the food trailer, and I mean, how did owning a barbecue trailer, is it coordinate with what you were doing on YouTube, or were you still holding a catering job with the YouTube, with the 9 to 5, corporate job too, or how? I mean, how did that transpire? How did that transpire before you're getting into the barbecue full time from a catering standpoint?
Yeah, so I had there was no way that I could run my barbecue food truck. It was I thought about it. It was like, could I hold on to my corporate job and still do the food truck? But it just wasn't going to work out. I had a very demanding corporate job, and the barbecue or the food business in general doesn't even have to be barbecue. The food business is very demanding.
Hmm.
Being barbecue, it's a lot more demanding because of how long it takes to cook stuff, and you're cooking it in a very primitive way, using wood and fire,
Yeah,
so things take longer. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to keep my corporate job and do that at the same time. So I had planned to leave my corporate job, and I gave them probably the longest notice known to man. It was probably a year notice, and I said, "Hey, I'm leaving on this day. I'm going to
yeah,
leave." And at that point, they were like, "Yeah, right. Whatever.
yeah,
He's just talking, or his head's a little inflated right now." Um, but and I would remind them, "Hey, just to remind that I am leaving on this date." And there was no plan to replace me or any of that stuff. They were just like rolling with the punches,
yeah,
and the days kept rolling in and the months kept rolling in, and then it started to get really close, 3 months. And it's like, hey, just a reminder that, I'm going to be leaving. And
yeah,
then they started taking it serious and saying, hey, well, wait a minute, we need to start training a replacement if that's the case, or what can we do? Do you want to move to another state?
yeah,
I mean, I worked for this company, and they did a great job of trying to hold on to me. And, I can't say anything bad about them, but there was no way that I could do both. So I had to leave because you know of how demanding, like I mentioned earlier. The
yeah,
plan was never to quit YouTube or anything like that. The plan was to get my truck open and hire some people, and spend some time there, make sure they're all trained up, and make sure they're doing the recipes correctly and all that other stuff. And
hmm,
then at the same time, do YouTube. It would give me a little
yeah,
bit of freedom to spend time on YouTube. But I quickly found out that, it's not that easy. I tried to leave, a few days, and, I'd get a call, hey, we're busy. Can you come help us? Et cetera. So there I go, and then, um, things were going really good. The first year that we were open, we accomplished a lot. We made it on Texas Monthly's top 25 new barbecue joints in Texas. So Daniel Vaughn came out. So we got a lot of recognition that way, and
yeah,
um, made it on the local newspaper front page. And so we were hitting it hard, man. We were hitting it hard, and accomplishing everything that we wanted to accomplish, and we were putting our name out there. And but uh, this economy we're in just kind of started to hit pretty hard, and got to the point where, man, I've got to raise my prices. And we had, people didn't have the money that they had before to go out and eat as much.
yeah,
So we started to slow down a bit, and I had to make some decisions. But um it was the plan was, again, to leave my corporate job, run the food truck, hire some people, train them up, and then spend more time on YouTube.
hmm,
But that wasn't the case.
yeah. So when you left your corporate job, what you were doing between catering and YouTube was basically your boat there was plenty close enough to the pier where you could make that jump pretty easy, or was it a I'm going to jump in and start doing this, and then I'm going to start making enough money to pay for my family? Or how was your transition?
Well, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, it takes planning, and part of that planning was to make sure you're financially stable.
Yeah.
Um, so the thing that I did, I looked at all of my. We don't have like high credit card bills like a lot of people or anything like that, but we had some toys that we had that I didn't really need. We had a travel trailer that I ended up
Hmm.
selling because we just weren't using it anymore, and we had cars that we still owed on the note, and so I ended up paying all the cars off and doing all that stuff. I started paying double on my mortgage. These are just examples of anybody listening that they can do to kind
Hmm.
of prepare themselves to jump into that restaurant journey or whatever it is that they're wanting to do. It's maybe some advice. Um,
Yeah.
they can take it or leave it, but that's kind of what I did. But just have to make sure you're financially set. So it got to the point, you know, I was at the point where I could leave my corporate job and not go backwards financially. I was making
Hmm.
more money doing YouTube alone, not to mention catering or anything like that. I was making more money on YouTube back then than I was at my corporate job. And I said, hey, I can leave. It's not something just because you make, a good amount on YouTube one month doesn't mean the next month is going to be the same. We all know that a lot of
Yeah.
folks, except for us Texans, think that barbecue is a seasonal thing. It's not. For us, it's more of a lifestyle, not really a seasonal thing. And because our
Yeah.
weather's so nice down here, we have the luxury of being able to cook year round.
Hmm.
So once I figured that out, that hey, I'm making more money on YouTube and my catering stuff than my corporate job, I really don't need my corporate job anymore. And
Yeah.
that's when I made the jump. And I'd given myself again about a year to leave, but I was already planning it.
Yeah.
Getting my food truck built. How do I want it laid out? Working on my menu, working on just everything. But again, just a reminder that I really had the weekends to think about this stuff. Obviously, I was very really dedicated to my corporate job. I wasn't. I'd be lying to you if I didn't talk barbecue to a lot of people while I was at work.
Yeah.
And I was always thinking about barbecue. It's always there. It's a good
Yeah.
conversation piece to for everybody. But I did my job. I did my job, and on my lunch hour, I'd probably jump on and see what I could do to, plan out this escape from my corporate job, and looking for equipment for the food truck and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not. You can't just leave, get up and leave, and do something like that. I mean, unless you're young and you don't have a family or anything like that, then by all means, go ahead and do it that way. But
Yeah.
when you've got responsibilities, man, it makes it a
Hmm.
little tougher to just leave and jump in.
Yeah. Responsibilities is kind of a limiter in some aspects of becoming the YouTube sensation that you are there.
Yeah.
So you essentially had, you know, you were probably at a year out. You were earning enough money to pay all your bills at that point, and that was when you made the decision to start the transition. So you had a year worth of double income to pay stuff off and to plant your seeds and build your YouTube empire and the food
Hmm.
truck empire, um, to where you can kind of step into that easily. And you're not gosh, I need to get three more catering jobs so I can fill my propane tank at the house. It's
Hmm.
not a it's not a struggle grow, whereas it's kind of a planned, executed um, task. You today you're doing the corporate thing, and then tomorrow I begin, you know, not having to do the corporate thing because you were already doing the YouTube stuff, right?
Hmm.
So did you step out of the corporate stuff and go immediately full speed into the catering and the food truck stuff, or was it well, let me do the YouTube, and then you step back out and do the food truck, and then kind of pepper both in? how did you transition?
It was pretty immediate. When I left, I already had my food truck. I remember the week after I left my corporate job, I was still getting my truck wrapped. So I got it wrapped, which is really expensive to do. So I got that done, and I had to, just tie the loose ends up a little bit. I had already placed my order on supplies. And supplies is all your paper stuff. Your butcher paper,
Yeah,
your boats for your sides, or your containers for your sides, or trays, aluminum trays, because our all of our food was handed out in trays. Unless it was to go, then it was to go boxes. But if you ate there, you were getting your food in a tray.
yeah,
Traditional barbecue tray. Um, so I got all that stuff planned. I had to figure out the wood situation. I had looked at wood, and obviously we're using post oak, but it's not something that grows out here in West Texas. Pecan and mesquite are more
yeah,
prevalent. So I had to drive to get some post oak, and then I got my supplier squared away, and I was buying semi truck loads at a time. But initially I drove my trailer out, and I got a
yeah,
couple of cords of wood just to kind of hold me for a few weeks. And so it was, total time was probably about a month when I left my corporate job to when I opened up my food truck. And I gave myself that month to take a little bit of time off, but it wasn't like a
yeah,
vacation. It was getting my printer, my menu printed out on a sticker,
yes,
and getting the food truck up and running, and getting it set up. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot, because you don't think about the things that you're going to need to operate a business. It's you got to get blenders, you got to get spatulas and spoons and
hmm,
forks and everything. So I took about a month. I gave myself a month to from the time I left to my food truck was open. It was about a month, and but it was nothing but work for that month, just to make sure everything was lined up properly.
yeah. So just kind of just adjusting stuff, and adding a couple of things here and there that um, you needed, but you didn't have in place quite then. But you were
Hmm.
prepared to be able to execute all that. And it sounds like you probably had a list that you're just going down, mentally or otherwise. It seems like you're a very calculated guy.
Hmm.
Um, when you open a food trailer, and you're also doing the YouTube stuff, and you find that you can't just teach just anybody to do barbecue,
Hmm.
and to do barbecue in the method and the way that you do it with the passion that you have for it, which, you pay somebody, 10, 15, $20 an hour. You can't make them love barbecue like you love barbecue. You love barbecue for the love of the barbecue. They love barbecue because it's paying their cell phone bill or whatever it may be. So, like,
Hmm.
you can't expect them to love your business like you love your business. And, that pulls you into the trailer on a full-time basis, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it got towards the end there. I was there full time. It was crazy, and you're 100% right. But see, here's the thing where my corporate job that I held, I was in a management position. Um, I was a regional sales manager, and that job, it taught me so much about people. You know,
Hmm.
I dealt with hundreds of thousands of employees that or team members that you have to. Everybody's different. Not everybody thinks the way you do. Not everybody has
Hmm.
the same passion that you do, and you don't talk to everybody the same. You treat everybody different. Even though you got to treat them the same, you treat everybody's different. Everybody's got a different way to get through to them. And that's why they're, when we started hired, before we hired anybody, we'd have to have them do these personality tests, so that we can know what we're dealing with, like
Yeah.
what what triggers this person, what gives them comfort, etc. I'm sure, I don't know if you've ever taken these tests before, but it's so crazy how you answer a few questions and we pretty much can tell you if you're an introvert, if you're an extrovert, and what you like and
Yeah.
dislike, and how we're supposed to talk to you. So, I learned to read people, and I also um, learned that not everybody operates the same way. Just because you can do something, you can chop an onion in 1 minute, doesn't mean the next person's going to chop the onion in 1 minute. If it takes them 5 minutes, but it looks similar to what you want, the results are going to be the same. Then that's just the way it's going to be, and you've got to deal with
Yeah.
it. You got to realize that not everybody's going to be like you, man. And so my corporate job, I think, helped me with that. But I think as long as the end game was the same, it I kind of left it alone. But um, we just had to learn to read people and make sure we understand that they're not all the same as you and have the same passion as you. But as far as spending time there towards the end, again, I did step away because I had a chef. I had my brother, which is my pit master, which I showed him how to cook barbecue. My brother didn't know anything about barbecue, and
Hmm.
in a short period of time, he's kind of mastered it. It took a while, because they one thing about employees is they try to do things their way, even though it's not the proper way, and
Yeah.
you've got to reel them back in and say, hey, that's not how we do it. It's got to be done this way. They try to take a shortcut or whatever, and my brother learned that, hey, this is the right way. We're going to do it this way, and that's the only way we're going to do it. So um I had again a chef, my brother, and then I had a cashier, so that was enough to run the food truck. I was just there kind of behind the scenes. I was still cooking, helping out as much as I possibly could, and then I would take a little bit of time to do the YouTube stuff. But as we got busy, they needed me there, so there was four of us in that food truck, and then towards the end, it was just my brother and I, doing the
Yeah.
job of really four people. But because it
Yeah.
was so slow, things had slowed down so much that I had to spend time there. I couldn't afford to pay anybody. It was just us
Yeah.
two, and it was working. But then when the work versus the payload versus the reward is just not there, you've got to make a decision.
Yeah.
I chose to just kind of pull the plug and say, okay, that's enough. Let's stop the bleeding and just move on. And I had,
Yeah.
I spoke to a few people and got some advice, from some financially stable people and business people, and
Hmm.
they would ask the tough questions and like, hey,
Yeah.
let's talk about your financials. Where were you at before you opened your food truck? And they were like, why did you open up a food truck, man? Things were going so good. Why did you ruin a good thing? And it gets you to think. It's like, man, why did I? You
Yeah.
look back at where you were at financially, and you're like, wow, why did I make these mistakes? And it hits home. So
Yeah.
I had to do it, man, and it was just too much. I was there full time, more than full time at the
Yeah.
food truck. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's almost like because I catered for a short period of time
Hmm.
prior to COVID, and you want to be able to express yourself with food through to as many people as you
We
possibly
lost your
can.
mic. You kind of sound muffled. There you go.
Mhm.
No, it's kind of muffled. There we go. It's
Better.
no, it gets good and then it kind of muffles.
How's that?
No, it's in your earpiece because whatever you move there.
How's that?
Better.
Better.
Yeah.
I have a big old fancy boom mic like you got, but I have yet to set it all up
Oh,
on my end.
I gotcha.
So that, and I don't like the massive
Yeah.
headphones is
Yeah.
messes with my aesthetics. I'm better
Right.
looking without that.
Hilarious.
So I completely forgot where I was going with that. So you stop the bleeding and you're kind of thinking, why did I step out and
Mhm.
put my barbecue out like that? And it's kind of like it's an expression of you as a cook, or a chef or a pit master, or whatever the food title you take is.
Mhm.
So like it's an expression of Joe, or
Mhm.
it's an expression of Wes, or whoever it may be. And so I mean, you stepped out and you did it, and you kind of it falls off because life happens, or it falls off because you give it to somebody else to do and they don't have the same passion.
Mhm.
But whatever the case may be, your case, we know you closed down and now you're doing nothing but YouTube, right?
Mhm.
So are, are you on other platforms too, or is it only a YouTube, Facebook thing? And how do you make a decision to do or not do the latest, greatest, newest platforms, or the tried and true stuff?
Yeah. So right now, my time is on YouTube, and I've got a good following on Facebook. On a few pages, but my big page, I'll put shorter video content on Facebook. It's the same name, Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue. So I'm focusing on that and YouTube, but I have other social media platforms like Instagram, and TikTok is something that I'm new to. Um, but TikTok, you can really grow your audience pretty quick there. Obviously, I think we're all unsure about the future of TikTok, what's going to happen with it, but for now, it's a place to hang out and post up a video or a behind the scenes kind of deal, or something that you got going on in your personal life, like fishing or whatever you're into. You can do that. Um, Instagram is a good place to share pictures and short clips of your cooks and stuff like that. But I don't see those as a monetized platform. I don't even see TikTok as a not that you can't monetize, because I know that there's people that monetize on Instagram and TikTok that do really well.
Mhm.
But right now, I'm putting my attention where it's going to benefit me the most, and right now it's Facebook and YouTube. My YouTube channel, obviously, because I was running the food truck, spending so much time there, it kind of fell off a little bit. Subscribers were still there, but my views started falling. And that's because it's like a fire. If you're not feeding it constant wood, it's going to die out on you. And
Yeah.
same thing has happened to my YouTube channel. So you got to stoke that fire and get it back to burning the way it was before. So that's my goal, is to do that. And it's going to take being a lot more consistent on uploading videos, good
Hmm.
quality videos, good content. People want to see the next best thing, the latest and greatest way of doing something. So you got to put your thinking cap on and do things, and sit down and say, okay, what do I want to cook on YouTube, and make a list of videos that you want to do, and that you feel people are drawn to. And the way you figure that out is because you've put videos out, that you've tested the waters with
Yeah.
doing something outside of the box, like using mayonnaise as a binder on brisket. What happens if you do that? Can you put everything bagel seasoning on a brisket, and what's it going to taste like? So that's kind of you know my my approach on YouTube. Is new stuff, trying to you know enhance the barbecue game that's already out there, and at the
Hmm.
same time, don't veer off too much. There's a lot of people that get a little too creative with the things that they do on YouTube, but those videos do amazing too. So I just don't want to test the waters that much. I'm still trying to educate people on how to cook barbecue themselves at home, and that's going to be
Yeah.
something that I want to focus on.
Yeah. So you're cooking quite a bit of barbecue still, but you're not selling it to the general public. Are you eating it all, or I mean, when you're doing shooting these videos, like um, Harry Sue's a buddy of mine out in California. Everybody knows Harry.
Mhm.
He shoots a lot of video content, but almost all the food gets donated to like the police department or fire department or whomever. Like, there's only so much barbecue you can feed your family before they go, you know what? I'm not interested.
Yeah.
What do you find? What do you find yourself doing with the content that you're filming?
Yeah. So that's a good question because a lot of people ask that. Hey, man, are you going to eat that whole brisket or that whole, uh, prime rib? Or it's just three of us, my wife and my daughter, and myself, and there's no way possible. So some of it, you know, you'll freeze it. You vacuum seal it and freeze it. And I've got 2 freezers full of food, of cooked food. But I also the easiest thing to do is just to give it away, man. It's what I do. So if I'm doing, a couple of pork butts, I'm doing, this and that pork butt or whatever the case may be, and um, offset versus pellet smoker pork butt or
Hmm.
whatever. That's a lot of meat. So what I do is I'll go buy some buns and I'll announce to my neighborhood that, hey, you know, come get a free pulled pork sandwich, and I've got a Facebook page for my neighborhood. I'm the neighborhood association president. So there's only 140 homes in our association. So um, I'll announce that, hey, come and get some pulled pork sandwiches, and I'll have people show up and take 5 or 6 sandwiches home. So,
Yeah,
or we give it, to our good friends, through text message. I just released a video this morning on a Tex-Mex brisket, and it wasn't a very big brisket, but I still had probably 5-6 pounds of brisket once it was all done. So I we gave some to some of the neighbors. We had some for dinner that night, and we had a little bit of leftover. So it goes pretty quick that way. But
yeah,
I learned that it's a lot faster or easier just to give it away. That way you don't have to vacuum seal nothing. You just give it away, man. Put it in a paper plate and hand it to the neighbors, and they love it. So whether
yeah,
it's catfish or brisket or whatever, it all goes away. It doesn't go to waste.
yeah, for sure. So your content creation for YouTube
Mhm.
is a little bit of different form than what it is for Facebook or what it is for TikTok. How do you teach yourself? I mean, is it just trial and error? Like somebody that's thinking, you know what, I want to be a YouTube guy. How do I become a YouTube guy? How do I figure out what the content, how the form content needs to be formed? How do you make those decisions?
Well, I mean, it is a balancing act. It's like that the guy at the circus that's spinning 9 plates, and they're all spinning at a different speed, or they all require different attention. Um, and if you want to keep them all going, you pay enough attention to all of them. But the everything outside of Facebook, or I'm sorry, YouTube, is all short content. Okay, that's kind of where social media has gone to. It's all short content. So when I'm cooking for YouTube, there's a lot of wait time. This brisket video that I just did, it was an overnight brisket, so I put that brisket on at 10:30 at night, and I pulled it off at 11 o'clock the next morning. So it's not really a whole lot of attention that I'm giving it, because you just hit start and that thing's smoking away. Um,
Hmm.
but when the camera's not rolling, that's when I'll get footage for Instagram and TikTok. It's just short content, just a quick pan of the grill or the smoker that you're using, and you open the door, take a quick video of the protein, and that's it. You know, I've got content for those platforms now.
Yeah,
The long form stuff or platform is YouTube. So all that's stored in my camera, and that gets edited into a video, however long that video comes out to, anywhere from 7 minutes to 18 minutes, depending on the video and how it turns out. I don't plan and say, hey, this video's got to be 10 minutes or less. No, it is what it is once I
yeah,
edit it. But the short content comes behind the scenes when you're, in my case, if all I was doing was TikTok and Instagram or any other platform, Facebook, then I would record different because that's all I did. It would be a higher quality video or content for those platforms. But since my plan is to pay more attention to YouTube than any other platform, I make sure that gets the best shots, the best footage, etc.
Yeah.
All these other platforms just get little snips of what I'm doing. Um,
Yeah.
but on Facebook is a little bit different. You know, as I mentioned earlier when we're off air, I've got several Facebook pages
Hmm.
that I run for either companies. And a lot of people that follow those pages don't know that I'm the admin behind the scenes, kind of running the show. But I also have my personal Facebook page, and then I have my Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue page. I've got a page for my food truck, and I've got several others. But I've got one really big group on Facebook, like 780,000, I think it is, or 740,000, I forget the number. But on that platform, I'll take my YouTube videos and condense them down to short content. And short content for that page is probably, you know, 3 to 6 minutes, you
Hmm.
know. And if you throw up an 8-minute video, that's fine too. But the way that social media has gone today is a lot of people are busy. They want fast, stuff. So it's got to be the meat potatoes, the Reader's Digest version of my YouTube video. So
Yeah.
I got to cut it up in the smaller sections and then feed it to them, and that does really well on that platform. So it's a balancing act. You just have to know what each platform likes. There's people that don't do YouTube that do an amazing job on Instagram, and because they don't do anything else other than Instagram.
Hmm.
Um, but you just have to know the platforms and adjust your creativity for each platform. And that works
Yeah.
for me.
Well, I mean, it almost seems like if you're going to do content creation,
Hmm.
you might as well do the long form stuff for YouTube because I mean, like, you've got to cook, you've got to do that full cook. You might as well have a camera running, while it's doing its thing,
Hmm.
and you can step in and take pictures or videos or whatever, and create stuff for the other platforms, kind of like you're doing. So I mean, it's it would almost be foolish not to, because you've got all that extra time for the YouTube stuff. It'd be foolish not to, create content for all these other platforms too, because I mean, you might as well. You're already doing it,
Yeah.
and it's not any more work necessarily outside of the editing,
Yeah.
right?
And the way, the analogy I like to tell people is that when I'm talking about this subject is, you're out there picking up dollars off the floor, but be underneath that dollar, there's quarters and nickels and dimes and pennies. Are you just going to pick up the dollars and leave all that other stuff there, or are you going to pick up those quarters and nickels as well? And once they see it like that, it's like, well, wait a minute, you're right. So how do I do it? Well, you're already doing it. You just take pictures or video of all that other stuff, man, and feed it to them. And I think a lot of people do it that way. Not a lot of people know how to do it, but it's pretty simple.
Hmm.
When you talk about it, it's like, oh man, that does sound pretty easy. So hopefully
Yeah.
people listening, um, get some of these tips and put them into place too. And one thing I noticed
Yeah.
about social media, it's changing. Sometimes it changes daily, but even the people creating the content, there's a bunch of old school people like myself that have been doing social media for a few years. But then there's the young crowd. The young crowd is doing an amazing job on social media. You'll have a 20-year-old that's got 4 million followers because of the way they do the things that they do on that platform. People are just drawn to that stuff. So it's changing,
Yeah.
man. It's changing quite a bit. So we'll see where this ends up.
Yeah. And with you being the full-time content creator and you're doing the YouTube stuff, you're doing the other snippets, you're doing all your own editing, you're doing all your own filming too, or are you, outsourcing any of that when it comes to making that content for the different platforms?
Yeah, no. So I do it all myself, man. I'm a one man show. Um, Now, when I had my corporate job, I did have a company that was editing my videos down for Facebook. They were doing a pretty decent job. Um,
Hmm.
and I partnered up with this company that would do that for me, and I would, it's a monetized platform. So they would take my 15-minute video down to a 3-minute video, and it wasn't the best quality, but
Hmm.
it was getting attention, and my page was growing and stuff like that. But since I quit my corporate job, I'm kind of doing it all myself now. I edit down the videos myself and put them up myself. But yeah, I got to the point at one point in my YouTube career that I was getting to the point where I could hire somebody to edit my videos, but it never got to that. It never got to that point, because I know that there's a young 17-year-old kid that just understands these video editing software deals,
Yeah.
that they can do a much better job than I am doing, you know.
Yeah.
But it just never got to that point. Hopefully it gets to that point now. If I you know stay on the gas
Well,
and continue to grow my audience, I can hire a full-time editor.
yeah. Well, that's it. And being content creator and doing it for yourself, like I've had a good number of friends and associates that are the content people, and I see them. Pretty much everybody is just keeping it in house, doing it themselves. Asking a wife or a spouse to shoot this angle for me or shoot that angle for me. But other than that, it's pretty much all a solo act.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I mean, you ultimately would love to grow to the point of being a business with an employees, or is it going to be kind of just keep dancing how you're dancing, and get a little help here and there kind of deal?
No, I would like to get to that point where I could hire I mean, I could probably film my own stuff, but it would be nice to have a camera guy, to do that, and to edit my videos. That same guy, usually those camera guys can, shoot and edit a video at the same time, or, the same person can do both things. But, it would be nice to be able to get to that point. Some of the big YouTube channels that are out there that have amazing content, and I'll use Google Foods as an example. He's got a whole crew. I mean, he's got a whole
Yeah.
film crew and editing crew, and that's why he's got the millions of subscribers that he's got, because of the production piece. If I had that, I mean, my channel would explode.
Yeah.
There's several good YouTube channels out there that are barbecue related, that have film crews and stuff, and you can definitely tell that the quality is different. I mean, they're not using this $1,000 camera that I'm using. They're using a
Yeah.
$6,000 camera.
Yeah, well, and but to say that too, though, like you have $1,000 camera. Harry, last I spoke to him, is still using his cell phone and shooting his content off of his
Yeah,
cell phone. So I mean, it doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily a need to go that high end, but I can definitely see the benefits of having a production around it. But at that point, that does that start pushing you into content that you're not necessarily interested in doing? Like Guga Foods, with him doing, I think I saw a video that he shot where he put mac and cheese, like the dust from the mac and cheese, box mac and cheese on a steak. You
uh-huh.
know, did he want to do content like that, or did he have to do content like that? To
Hmm.
pay those staffers. So I mean, I guess it's a balancing act as
Yeah,
far as you know how deep you want to go, right?
yeah, for sure. But it's all about, I think that once you have once you have the that quality video, that high quality video, it's done in 4K or whatever you want to call it, and the sound is the best, and just the transitions are in place. Somebody like Harry Sue, when I first started my YouTube channel, he wasn't anywhere near the subscribers that he's at now. But I never saw myself being a Harry Sue caliber YouTuber. I always
Yeah,
thought that, man, this guy is, not a king, but he's a force to be reckoned with on YouTube. I was like,
yeah,
wow, much respect to him. And I actually got to meet Harry at a competition in Lubbock when I was doing competition barbecue. Great guy, great, amazing guy. But I think in order to jump from the 280,000 subscribers that I've got now to 1 million, it's going to take some of that, the film crew and a professional editor to help get me there. Can I do it on myself, on my own? Absolutely, I think I can, but it's going to take a little bit more work on my part. Better quality video, better audio, better everything.
yeah,
So I think that those camera crews and editors that are editing those videos for Google Foods and some of the bigger channels, I think that they help get them, because of the quality of videos there. It's no, there's no pausing, there's none of that stuff. It's just boom, 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 and that's
yeah,
what people want to see. Let's get to the point, hurry up, and let's see how this turns out. But at the same time, be entertaining and have the music in the background and sound
yeah,
effects and all that. And I think that a camera guy and a good editor can do that for your
yeah.
channels.
Well, it puts you a little bit at a disadvantage. I mean, because I'm sure shooting those, like him shooting those videos, is probably pretty much an all day deal. Um, probably a 6 to 8 hour a day process. Whereas if you're doing the same thing, you're cooking barbecue, you're looking at paying these guys 12, 14, 16 hours, right? So I
Hmm.
mean, you've got the balance there as well.
No, for sure. If I had a camera crew, for example, using that last video, um, recording that last video, it was an overnight cook. So, they had to be here maybe a couple hours while I trim and season the brisket. And then, they can film me putting the brisket in the smoker, and then they take off until the next morning. Um,
Yeah,
so I'm sure there's a lot of that for those long cooks. If it's just a steak, we're talking about Google. Google likes to, maybe age his steaks for, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 months, a year.
yeah,
Those cooks take a while, those videos take a while to produce, but um yeah, it's definitely something that I'd like to do. I mean, maybe one of these days, we'll see.
yeah. Well, I am absolutely no help, as you can see my studio and lighting and sound. So don't ask me or mine for nothing.
Right.
Uh, Dino Dan smoking, checking in.
Hey,
He
Dan.
says one of his favorite barbecue brothers.
Yeah, man, he's a great dude. Old Dan.
Yeah, he is. He's good people, man. Even though he's from California and doesn't know what real barbecue is.
Right.
But I mean, nowadays barbecue is pretty much everywhere. I mean, you can get it in any state and probably in any country at this point.
Hey, there's things that California does really well, like uh tri-tip. Dan, to cook a tri-tip, he's a savage. So
Yes.
they do a lot of good things. They might not know other cuts of me. I'm kidding, Dan. I'm kidding, man.
What are you trying to do? Get me some hate mail?
I know, right?
Oh man, both my fans are gonna leave me and not watch my podcast anymore, man. Both of them gonna leave.
Yeah.
So you see the future of Smokin Joe's YouTube channel growing into a an actual business with an employee or maybe two. You're still going to be in the are you still going to be in like the competition scene, or is it going to be cooking in the backyard type content? I mean, what do you see what do you see, or is it a little bit of everything?
Well, I mean, obviously not being tied to the food truck, I think gives me a little bit more time to, if I wanted to, go do a competition. There's comps that are fairly close to me, in New Mexico. Um, Lubbock is not too far away from me. So if I had to go do a competition cook, you know, I could do that now. Now that I'm not tied to that food truck. So, and at the
Yeah,
same time, I'm thinking competition, but I'm also thinking, okay, let me take my camera out to record this so I can put out a video on this stuff because people want to see the behind the scenes stuff or they want to see certain things, and not everybody films that or you know shows the behind the scenes stuff. And I'm the kind of guy that,
yeah,
man, what you see on my videos is 100%. There's no smoke and mirrors. There's no uh you know uh secrets that are held. I like to share everything, man. And even with my food truck, I was pretty open with maybe not all of the recipes. There's some
hmm
recipes that I'll never share with anybody, but some of the recipes I was sharing with people and how to do stuff because people want to see that.
yeah. What would just out of curiosity, what would be a recipe that you wouldn't share?
Well, the my barbecue sauce recipe, um,
Okay.
because I got plans for that, to hopefully bottle it one of these days. And another one is my mac and cheese recipe. But you know, honestly, I've been thinking long and hard about this. That I'd love to, because I think that video would do pretty good on YouTube. Um, and it's such an easy recipe, but a lot of people don't know how to get that smooth
hmm
texture. Theirs comes out grainy or whatever. It's just
Yeah,
not the best. But I'm thinking long and hard about that recipe. Um, and now that I don't have a food truck, it really doesn't. It's not going to hurt me. But I know that there have been people that use some of my sausage recipes in their barbecue restaurants, and those barbecue restaurants reach out to me and say, "Hey, would you mind if I use this at my restaurant?" Absolutely not, man. I'm flattered that you would even consider, making this sausage for your restaurant. And so there's restaurants
yeah,
out there that are using my recipes for their sausages. Um, and I think the same would be for that mac and cheese. I think people would
yeah,
use it and not say that they're using it. They're just going to use it and call it theirs. It is that good.
yeah,
It's an amazing mac and cheese,
yeah. We'll talk about that whenever Dino Dan's not around. We'll get that recipe
right?
when he's not listening. He said he tried to get your recipe once and you turned it down.
Yeah, maybe one of these days, Dan.
Oh man, it's better luck next time, there, man.
Yep.
Um, So you alluded to the possibility of bottling a sauce.
Hmm.
So, you're thinking growing the YouTube into a business with an employee or two, and then possibly doing some light co-packing,
Hmm.
or would that be just as you want to do one holiday and you'll release a sauce for a holiday type deal, or are you thinking of getting into the rubs and sauces game in addition to the YouTube because you can't seem to do just one thing, as evidenced by catering and YouTube
Hmm.
and a corporate job all at the same time.
Yeah. No, I mean there would
Going,
definitely be a co-packer kind of deal. It would be uh, available to the public, and try to get it into the right stores and stuff to sell it.
okay.
That'd be the ultimate plan.
Yeah. So the YouTube would be the regular job, and that would just be some vacation money or something similar to that, or just being able to put your flavor out to the world, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, I got you. So we have kind of gotten to the point in the show where kind of we know where we're going, we know where we've been. Hit me with your social medias, and we'll slide out of here for now. I definitely do want to invite you back. Ideally, I'd love to have you on. I've got an upcoming episode where it's a it's a YouTube, a excuse me, it's a barbecue content creator roundtable episode that I am trying to get everybody scheduled on the same schedule. We had it set for this Sunday, but some people have other things that their wife told them to do that they forgot. And so we're going to have to reschedule because of that person. But that's neither here nor there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my you can find me on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and here and on YouTube, Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue. Uh, no G in the smoking part, and follow me there. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I do have a website that I was running for the business, but that'll probably end up going away. But you can find me on those platforms, and unless something new happens with the newer platforms, I'm going to stick to those platforms that I mentioned.
Yeah. Awesome, awesome, man. I have scratched the surface on Smoking Joe's Barbecue, and I've got probably 3 more hours worth of questions to ask you, and I don't want to corner you and keep you here for 3 more hours, so we'll have to table it for now. But man, I appreciate you being on the show with me. We'll sign out, and I'll probably talk your off air.
All right. Thanks, Wes.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you've enjoyed this week's episode, we would appreciate a review, a like, a share, and as always, keep smoking. Thanks, everybody.